a tribute to those who fought for the British, but of course for all of the Allied nations, and Canada such a prominent role. 14,000 Canadians involved. Yes, storming the beaches, but also on the seas and from the air. And my next guest, I'm so thrilled to be able to tell you, was one of those in the air, and joined by someone who has documented so beautifully for so many years their exploits. On the right of your screen is William Novick, who was in the Royal Canadian Air Force, piloted a Halifax bomber during the Second World War, part of D-Day, 35 sorties all told. Mr. Novick, good morning to you and welcome to our broadcast.
Thank you.
They tell me I'm supposed to call you Bill, but I'm not sure I'm comfortable doing that. I might have to go with Mr. Novick, so please don't take offense. And beside Mr. Novick is Ted Barris, who's a friend of our program and of the network, and has written such beautiful books on the Second World War. And we'll tell you why Ted is there in a second. But good morning to you too, Ted, as well.
Thanks, Heather. Nice to hear from you, and particularly this morning.
What a morning it is. Ted, can you do a little camera work for me? Because show where you are. Our two guests are on a ferry. Turn that around for me, Ted, so everyone can understand where you are right now.
We are within a few minutes of getting to the French port. If you move the other way, Daniel, back to the left, you'll see the French coastline there. I think turn a little bit further to the left. Can you see that, Heather?
I can see
That's the French coastline.
And you're on a ferry.
And this is on a ferry, and there are 50 of us, actually among about 2,000 on the ferry. But the 50 are Canadians who are with me, and among them Bill's family. We have spent the last 4 or 5 days prepping so many of the people in our tour to the idea of the D-Day invasion. And Bill, of course, has been a stalwart in being able to give us a bird's eye view because he was in the air on the night of June the 5th. This very day, in the evening preceding D-Day, he was in the air and he was doing a sortie against the bridges in Caen on the night of the 5th.
So, Mr. Novick, you're coming into the coast of France by boat right now. But as Ted said, 75 years ago, you were flying over. What are your thoughts, though, as you approach again from the sea?
Well, I'm fortunate to be able to be here. I'm fortunate that members of my family are with me. And I am also equally fortunate that I'm with Ted and a wonderful group of friends who are with us on this tour.
Share with Heather your notion of what it's like to be here in contrast to what you were doing 75 years ago.
Well, the ocean is smooth. I was up in the air. It was rainy. It was cloudy. We were ordered to bomb gun emplacements that would have been threatening the troops as they stormed onto the beaches. Pathfinders brought flares to illuminate and mark the target. We did our best to do so. Coming back to our base in Yorkshire, I then saw this tremendous armada of boats filling the English Channel on the way to start the invasion.
So you flew over and you saw it. And did you, at the end of the day, did you have a sense of just how important this day in the battle was going to be for the war overall?
Well, we all expected D-Day, and we knew that there was not going to be any other way of defeating the Nazi regime and to break their hold over the entire continent of Europe. So this was the way the victory had to begin, by landing an army on the coast of France.
Yes. As Ted says, your family is with you. Can I just ask, sorry, I'll come back to you, I promise, Ted, but you mentioned the family being there with you. Some veterans have chosen not to tell very much about what they saw and experienced to their family members. I'm wondering what you have shared with them about D-Day, but also about your role in the war more thoroughly.
Well, they know that I was involved. They know that this was part of my generation's job to do, and we did it. I'm very happy that they are showing an interest, and it was their decision to accompany us, and we, of course, are very grateful that they are here.
Ted, characteristically modest, as so many of the Canadian vets are, in not really sharing the details either of the horrors they saw or their valor in accomplishing such military great exploits. What is your sense of what you're teaching them, or what you're all learning about D-Day? One would think that it's all been learned by this point, but obviously you're giving a new version, a fresh version to this history.
Well, partly by the design of the tour, we're giving them a kind of a chronological tour of what happened leading up to D-Day and so on. But you're absolutely right, Heather. Bill is a modest man. He won a DFC for his service in the Air Force. One of the reasons he received the DFC was his operation on this very night, June the 5th. He won't describe it terribly deep in much detail, but in order for the men who were crossing this channel on the night of the 5th, 6th of June to get on the beach safely and stay there, the bridges which were spanning the waterways to the either side of the beachheads, those canals and rivers, in order to keep the Germans from counterattacking the Canadians and the Americans and the British in those beach areas, had to be blown. And the one he was assigned was blown. When I met him 15 years ago on this very same tour, every time we went over a bridge over Caen, he was smiling, and I asked him why. He said, "This is the bridge that I took out that night in order to prevent the Germans from attacking the beachheads." So that's a pretty exciting thing to remember. He's awfully modest, as you say.
Ted, thank you for telling me that, because you didn't offer that, Mr. Novick, and of course, as we've said, characteristically modest despite that valor. I'm wondering, you wouldn't have heard, we had this wonderful special commemoration from Portsmouth, and we had a 99-year-old veteran saying, "Never forget your comrades." That's what he felt. You just never forget your comrades. And then someone else just told us on our broadcast how the vets have told him, "I wouldn't do this again for $1 million, but I wouldn't have missed it for $10 million." What are your feelings, Mr. Novick, about your comrades and the experience?
Well, of course, my main comrades were my immediate crew, 6 other men in their various capacities, which combined into a 4-engine bomber crew. We were very close to each other, and we did 35 missions together over various targets in Germany, France, and the Low Countries. We all survived, fortunately, in good physical and hopefully mental health, and went on to continue with our careers afterwards. We remember those who did not come back, and part of my reason for making this journey on more than one occasion is to give homage to those who gave their lives for the victory that Churchill was wishing so much for us to have.
And when you do see those tombstones and think of your fallen comrades, what are your reflections, Mr. Novick?
They were Canadians who did their duty. They're Canadians who hopefully continue to be remembered, and that we continue to be proud of their achievements.
Yes. Ted, will you be taking this group to Benny-sur-Mer for some contemplation there?
Yes, we will. It's part of our schedule. We're, as you can appreciate, with all the dignitaries in the region, they've been moving back and forth from England to France. We kind of have to dodge them to make sure that we can get there, but we shall. And there are a number of graves that I and my wife Jane and several of the people on the tour are specifically going to see. We'll remember, as Bill has requested us to do, and we'll try to keep what's most important to me, a face on this particular operation and a face on the Canadians' experience in Normandy.
Ted, thank you. That's such an important point, and it's the one on which I would like to end. Mr. Novick, there are many young Canadians who are going to be on Juno Beach, who were there in Portsmouth, who will be there in Bagny-sur-Mer. What do you want young Canadians specifically, but all of us Canadians, to know now about what happened 75 years ago and why it's important for us to think about it today?
Well, we were fighting for the freedom that was in great danger of being lost, a tyranny that the world had not seen before. And the results of that tyranny are still being felt in various ways all over the world. And I would very much like that young Canadians continue to study the history of what Canada's role in World War II was. And I certainly would like to pay tribute to Ted, who through his works, his books, has played such an important part in helping to continue all this.
Thanks, Bill.
I would certainly agree with you. Ted, your books have helped us understand this so much better. Thank you for the writing. Thank you for the conversation, Ted. And to Bill Novick, Distinguished Flying Cross recipient, the veteran of 35 sorties, a D-Day veteran, and my very special guest, thank you for your service and thank you for your time today.